HR issues can kill you. One complaint against your company can turn your world upside down. And you spend way too much time dealing with HR when you should be spending your time on making a profit. You should talk to Bambi. With Bambi, get access to your own dedicated US-based HR manager starting at just $99 per month. They get to know you and your business while providing HR expertise and the personal touch you need and want. They're available by phone, email, and real-time chat, so onboarding and terminations run smoothly. Team members reach peak performance, and your business stays compliant with changing HR regulations. And with Bambi's HR Autopilot, you'll automate important HR practices like setting policies, training, and feedback. HR managers can easily cost $80,000 a year, but Bambi starts at $99 per month. Schedule your free conversation today to see how much Bambi can take off your plate. Go to Bambi.com right now and type in Accelerate under podcast when you sign up. It'll really help the show. Spelled BAM, BEE.com. Bambi.com. Type in Accelerate. Welcome to Accelerate Your Business Growth, where we're exploring all sorts of business topics. Experts from around the world join me, your host, Diane Helbig, for a conversation where they share their expertise with all of you. Take what you need when you need it. Featured on Inc.com, Forbes, and MSNBC's Your Business, this podcast is recognized as one of the best podcasts for small business, sales, leadership, social media, and more. When it comes to business, Accelerate Your Business Growth has got it covered. And now on with the show. My guest today is Lisa Haggis. Lisa helps service-based entrepreneurs and small business owners position their businesses as one of a kind in their field for higher visibility, impact, and earning potential. Leveraging 18 years of experience in marketing, branding, and business strategy, she's committed to cracking the code on what makes a business innately interesting and worth mentioning. She's the founder of Realize Your Brand, a high-touch business consultancy that transforms growing businesses into standout brands. Thanks so much for joining me today, Lisa.
Yes, it's such a pleasure to be here, Diane. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. I'm thrilled to have you here. And I want to start with what may seem to you like a basic question.
Okay.
But I want an answer to it, which is, what is the difference between marketing and brand?
Yes, it's not, it is not an easy question. I think that the first thing to say is there is no right or wrong answer, and you'll find lots of different answers out there. So what I always like to offer is what I think is the most helpful way of looking at it. Especially for the business owner who needs to put themselves out there and market themselves. So in my books, I like to think of marketing as putting yourself out there to get seen, to get found, to make new connections, to grow your reach, and then, take in that new interest into your business and turn it into something as kind of the process of sales. Now, I see branding as the stuff that happens before that. So it's like setting up the business itself so that it's interesting, so that as you go out there and you market yourself, you have offerings and messages and a unique positioning or mission to what you do that actually resonates with people once you get in front of them.
Interesting. Okay, I appreciate that.
Yeah,
So,
thank you.
Oh, sure. Thank you. So now will you explain why good branding is so important for business success?
Yes. Yeah. Well, my own story is I've worked in the marketing field for 10 years. And often by the time clients came to me, they had already made a lot of really critical decisions about who they were as a business, like what their offerings were, or who their client was, or even their core messaging, like their websites were done, their collateral, all of it was already done. And then they would turn to a marketing person to say, okay, get me out there and get people interested in my products. And what I faced was I was kind of set up to be very limited in what I could do for these clients because they had offerings that were the same as everybody else's. Their messaging was the same as everybody else's. And so it was really like kind of tethering what was possible once, with marketing or putting yourself out there, because the business was either generic or a duplicate of what everyone else was doing. And they just hadn't done the work up front to make sure that their business was already unique, or what I like to call like worth mentioning.
That's so great. And so many, this is why we're having this conversation, really, right? Because people don't realize that, and they think that marketing alone is going to get them where they need to go, but that's not necessarily true, is it?
Exactly. Especially if you're working with a marketing person who isn't going to challenge you and say, hey, your offerings are generic or not unique, or, and so a lot of people turn to marketing agencies that will take them where they're at and at face value and try to do the best they can with an existing business. But the best thing to do is to build an interesting business.
Yeah, I so agree with that. But then, so my question is, because I think this is what people really struggle with, is what does it really take to create an interesting brand that's worth talking about?
Yes. Okay. Here we go. Okay. So there's two things I want to say. The first is, like, I've developed my own methodology around this because I'm so obsessed with it. And what I actually call an interesting brand is a substantial brand. And so what it takes is a brand that is multi-dimensional. And the 3 dimensions that your brand must have in order to be truly, truly interesting are meaning that you connect with people on a heart level, that there's a bit of a soul or a purpose or a mission to your business. Value, meaning that you actually create incredible results and transformation for people with your offerings, and you know how to tell them about that value, about that transformation. And then originality. So you have a unique approach and take on what it is that you deliver to people, and you kind of step up with some innovation or a unique message around it that people haven't seen before.
I see. That is really interesting. So do you see, I keep feeling like this is difficult for people to land on, right? That they default to the same sort of messaging that they think people want to hear, instead of really turning it around and looking at themselves.
Yes, absolutely. And I love that you used the word default, because I really think that that is most often just what's going on, is they're not even aware that they should be asking themselves the right questions.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Okay. So how do they get in touch with all of that? What's really compelling about them and their business?
Yeah. And this is where it gets a little more actionable and less overwhelming is really what I love to share with people is the only thing that you need as a starting point to create an interesting brand or business is a strong and unique point of view. And so what you really need to get to are your philosophies or beliefs around the transformation that you provide for people. But it could also even just be about life. It could be about your industry. It could be just your strongly held principles and opinions, that gives you the very heart, like the core of what your entire business can be built around to be a really unique and incredible business.
Okay. I'm really glad that you sort of expanded that out to, it could be about your industry. It could be about life. It could be about whatever, because I think that it makes it a little easier for people to, really dig in and land on.
Absolutely. And what I'll also share is that everybody has so much within them when it comes to this idea of like philosophy or point of view. And a lot of my clients originally think they don't. But like everyone has that. So there is nobody out there who owns a business who doesn't have what it takes to dig in, get their unique point of view, and create an interesting business.
Are there, it feels to me like they have to be willing to like be really honest with themselves about what really matters to them, who they really are, and that and also who their audience is. Is that realistic?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And so like one of the things that I like to say is like when you're going through a branding process, the very first thing that's going to change is how you see yourself. And because that same default behavior that happens when we're thinking, when we're building a business and thinking what others expect of us, we do that exact same thing to ourselves. And we have our own ways of how we think we should be or how we're trying to show up. And so to create a brand that is really authentic and really, unique and aligned to you, you have to shake that stuff off and you have to be really real with yourself.
Does your personality have to be the centerpiece of the brand?
Absolutely not. And so, I'll just kind of share my personal journey around this because I know it will resonate with many. When I started branding like 10 years ago, when I ventured in like out of marketing into branding, I thought like everyone else that it was about, zeroing in on a piece of your personality and amplifying it and getting really big and larger than life with it. And I would like lead branding workshops and I would say, what kind of cereal are you? And there is an element of your brand that is personality, of course. But the thing is, our world is filled with people who are not larger than life personalities. And also personality changes. And so that's why I really wanted to find an approach that goes so much deeper. And if you look at the brands we love out there, thought leaders, authors are really great to look at. You can see that a lot of them are not the larger than life personality types, but that they have a message that resonates and they are stepping up, sharing their strong point of view in the world. And that's what they become known for.
Yeah, I think that is a great point. It's interesting. When you said that, I started thinking about authors who I really like, and that is true with every single one of them.
Absolutely. Like I always like to just pull out Brene Brown because,
Yeah.
She's just such a great example of like humility, and she's got a sense of humor but it takes time to warm up to like, to really even get to see the nuances of her personality, but her message packs such a punch that she gets seen and heard and people share her message.
Yeah. I feel the same way about Glennon Doyle.
Yes.
Just totally authentic, humorous, just really a person, not a big celebrity personality kind of.
Absolutely.
This episode is brought to you by Klaviyo, the platform that powers smarter digital relationships. With Klaviyo, you can activate all your customer data in real time, connect seamlessly with your customers across all channels, guide your marketing strategy with AI-powered insights, recommendations, and automated assistance. Deliver experiences that feel individually designed at scale and grow your business faster. Power smarter digital relationships with Klaviyo. Learn more at klaviyo.com/Spotify. That's KLAVIYO.com/Spotify.
The world's best-known investor and Wall Street expert Warren Buffett once said, "Wall Street is the only place that people ride to in a Rolls-Royce to get advice from those who take the subway." Mr. Buffett's quote is remarkably accurate, but how many people would rather receive advice from him than someone simply guessing? Welcome to Buy, Hold, Sell, your single source for Wall Street knowledge and profitable guidance. Please join me, Todd Schoenberger, and fellow trader Tobin Smith, as well as host Veronica Dudo, for a podcast known to move the needle for investors. Tobin and I are seasoned Wall Street executives with deep investment experience, and we are prepared to share our advice to those who choose to listen. Download Buy, Hold, Sell today on the Evergreen Podcast Network or your favorite podcast channel.
So we've given a couple examples of authors, but I'm wondering if you can give us some like real life examples of bad branding.
Well, so something I'd like to share is that I think every brand has a bit of both. Like I would never label, oh, this is a bad brand and everything they do is terrible, or this is a good brand. I think that every brand kind of has not great moments. I just shared one about myself. Like when I started out as a branding consultant, I was focusing on personality like everybody else. And so I was defaulting just like the rest of my industry, but I was lucky that I could feel that there was something more there, and I pursued it, and I became better and better at getting my clients the results I really wanted to get them. And so, a lot of my clients come and they have an idea about who they need to be. And that's them being a bad brand, and that's why this is such an incredible journey. When you decide that it's time to level up your business and your brand, you can kind of look at the ways that you are holding back in your existing brand, because we are all doing it. And so that's kind of a non-answer, but I really feel like we are so surrounded by amazing brands. And that's what I like to really kind of focus in on. And then I notice when I'm in, I'm particularly in the online kind of service-based business space. And of course, I see a lot of people just heavily focusing on their personality. And I know that that's not going to last, because like I said, we change and evolve, and our personality does too.
I think that is a huge point. That keeps resonating with me, that changes. And so that is not the place where you want to have, the focus.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So you like to focus on good brands. So do you have examples of good brands?
Yeah, well, I'm just actually reading a magazine right now that's talking about some of the great innovative Canadian brands. I'm Canadian. And the one that comes to mind for me is Shopify. And so something that just really jumped out at me is, and this goes right back to this idea of having like a philosophy that guides the decisions you make in your business, and that's what makes you worth mentioning and makes you stand out. And so Shopify, for example, like when people talk about Shopify, they talk about their ethos, their philosophy, like they do not compete with their merchants. And if you look at the comparables out there, like the Amazons, and they're taking a completely different approach because they believe in empowering their merchants, and they like to call themselves merchant obsessed. And you see it in the results of people love this company because of their point of view, because of what they stand for.
That's a great example.
Thank you. Yes, I love that company too.
Yeah, no kidding. And I didn't realize that was there. I mean, I don't use them, but that really makes sense to me. Now, it feels to me like when a company figures this out, it figures out, this is who we are. This is what we stand for. This is what, differentiates us, whatever it is, that they have to really pay attention to that and make sure that they're staying within that lane, because can it hurt them it feels like it could really hurt them if they created this whole brand but in their actions were deviating from it.
Oh, yes, like 100%. So when this cannot just be lip service. And I think I'm really glad that you brought that up, because once you get clear on your point of view and you become known for those ideas, you better be walking the talk. You better be seeing it through in your products, your services, your marketing, your client relationships, the way you treat your employees. Like it becomes kind of like the DNA or the filter through which every single decision you make in your business has to be filtered through that brand statement, that manifesto.
Yeah, right. So that seems to me like then it gives you real clarity, because you can always, if you're always referencing back to that, it makes it easy to make certain decisions because it either tracks or it doesn't.
Yes.
And then it just continues to build that brand and that awareness that, yeah, this really is who you are.
Absolutely. Like when I first ventured into the branding world, something that really stuck out with me was a book I was reading, talked about Cranium, like the board game Cranium. And they were quite innovative and different in the board game space. And one of their principles was that in everything they did, they wanted to make sure the customer got to be the star.
Oh.
And that's an example of like, they actually had a person whose job it was in that corporation. And that was one of them. They had like 3 rules like that. I only remember that one, that the customer had to be the star, but there were like 3 rules. And there was a person whose position it was to enforce those rules in everything they did.
Wow. That is commitment. Yeah.
Well, exactly. And that's on a really large scale. But for a small business, you get to be that person who enforces your principles throughout your whole business.
So you said earlier that, one of the challenges when you first got involved in this is that, clients would come to you and say they wanted you to get them out there, but it was already cooked. The pie, sorry,
yes.
Pretty much done. And so you couldn't really. So if someone's listening and they're thinking to themselves, okay, well, we've got everything set up. We've been motoring along as this, but we're not even sure if it fits with, our core values or whatever it is, if it is a brand. Do you have advice on like first steps they can take to start evaluating or creating or any of that?
Yeah. Well, I feel like the first thing I want to say is, there might not be a problem. Like you may have just without going through this process, you may have created a business that is unique and that your offerings might create amazing results and you might not have a problem. And so the way to know, if you really need to kind of put your attention toward your brand, is if you feel that you're not getting any resonance or any attention with what you're putting out there in the world. If you feel as though you're chasing clients down and that they're not seeing why they should choose you, or if you're feeling like you can't even explain why they should choose you, then there's definitely something to look at. But I don't like to like paint it with one big broad stroke and say everybody needs to go right back to the drawing board. There can of course also just be an evolution, and your business is going to evolve anyways. And so within that evolution, next time you feel stuck, next time you feel that, your offerings are not kind of getting the traction that you've been seeing, then it's a good time to start asking yourselves these more kind of brand strategy related questions and start shifting your brand towards something that's a little more legacy level, a little bit more, world changing.
And please don't say that what differentiates you is that you provide great customer service.
Well, exactly. That's that default thing again, right? Yeah. Like a lot of, and the other one that I always see is how much you care.
Yeah.
And that, that kind of goes back to the idea of meaning, value, and originality, because how much you care is a value, and there's a place for it in your business that people will appreciate it, but it does not make you different.
Yeah. Right. That's right. Is it how that shows up, how that manifests itself that makes you different?
Yeah, well, exactly. Yeah. If it's manifesting itself in an interesting way. Right. But, most of the time, if you care a lot, it just means that you treat your clients really well, but many, many people do. And so, that's another kind of piece of advice I like to give. And what I see often is people are comparing themselves to their worst competitors and saying, oh, I care, or I have great customer service, but you should be comparing yourself to your best competitors and see if those things still hold.
Ah, boy, that is great advice. Wow. Wow, Lisa, I love this conversation. This is really so incredibly valuable for, every small business owner out there should be paying attention to this. So thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you, Diane. It's just been such a pleasure.
Absolutely. And will you tell the listeners how they can find you and, anything you think they should know, please?
Absolutely. Yeah. So you can find me. So my company is realizeyourbrand.com, or that's my website, realizeyourbrand.com. And you can find us on Facebook as well at Realize Your Brand, or Instagram. And I just want to invite anybody who feels inspired to reach out and DM me on one of those social sites. Let me know if you're in a place that you'd like to learn more about where your brand can go and solidify your vision.
Yeah, it's a great idea. We should all be doing that because, if you're not getting the results that you used to get or that you were hoping for, it could be that you haven't really solidified your brand effectively. Mm-hmm. Excellent. All right. Well, once again, Lisa, thank you. And listeners, thank you. You are who we're doing this for. Thank you for tuning in to this episode of Accelerate Your Business Growth, a production of Evergreen Podcasts. Discover more episodes of this podcast and explore others at evergreenpodcast.com. As always, continue to prosper and be curious. And if you're looking to get your sales strategy headed in the right direction, pick up a copy of Succeed Without Selling on Amazon or wherever books are sold. Until we meet again on another episode of Accelerate Your Business Growth, goodbye and good day.
The average person experiences up to 10,000 marketing efforts each day. Those ideas are culled from millions of possibilities. The CMO Confidential podcast takes you behind the scenes to learn about the decisions, drama, politics, and glory that go with one of the most scrutinized jobs in the executive suite, the Chief Marketing Officer. Guests from all over the business world join Mike Linton, a 5-time CMO, to share stories about what it's really like in the marketing universe.